students, today's class I will be talking about class 9th important chapter in ICSE we find, that is the language of chemistry. So this is the first chapter since the new session is begin to start. So let me talk to you today about the language of chemistry. This is chapter 1, the language of chemistry. In this chapter, whenever you start discussing language of chemistry, means chemistry has got name of chemicals and their reactions. So how the name of chemicals are given, how the symbols were used. So some basic things are there in this chapter. So first let me introduce to you about chemistry. Chemistry, you know, it is a branch of science which deals with matter and their behavior, and that is in terms of chemical reactions. So this is what we study in chemistry. And when we start about matter, so we need to have basic idea that matter means it may be a pure substance or it may be an impure substance, which we call it mixture. Pure substance can be further divided as element or compound. Elements, you must have heard about metals, non-metals, metalloids, or noble gases. Compound may be inorganic or it may be organic. Impure substances or mixtures are of two types: homogeneous and heterogeneous. Let us now try to understand one by one as we have framed in the form of this chart. First, let us understand what the matter. You must have heard the definition: matter is composed of particles, and matter is something which has got mass and occupies space. So here we can define matter. Matter means anything which occupies space and has mass. So this definition is very, very important. So what is matter? Now, in case of matter, we came across pure substances. Pure substances means they have definite composition. For example, if you take pure water, it is composed of two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen, and we call it H2O. So there is definite composition of elements in a pure substance. Now, this definite composition is there, therefore defined or definite physical properties, physical and chemical properties is also seen. Now, we came across that pure substance can be an element or a compound. We will start our discussion first about an element. What is an element? You take, for example, I told you that pure substance, let us say we have taken water, and water, the smallest independent substance, that is a molecule, and this molecule is actually H2O. So this H2O has two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen. So here, if I take this example, oxygen, then I can say that oxygen is an element. Then if I wish to define what is an element, what is an element? An element is a pure substance made up of one kind of atoms. For example, you take, it is a cylinder. It is a cylinder and it contains, let me say, oxygen gas. What does it mean? The cylinder contains only oxygen molecules. In other words, we may say that contains one kind of atoms. So which element it is? That element is oxygen. I hope you are able to visualize what an element is. Why do we say an element is a pure substance? Pure substance generally made up of one kind of atom. Suppose I said here the cylinder containing oxygen gas, means it consists of oxygen molecules only. An oxygen molecule is made up of two atoms of oxygen. And what are they? What is that? That is the element oxygen. Now, classification of elements. Classification of elements. Elements are of four categories. They can be metals, they can be non-metals, they can be metalloids, or noble gases. In brief, we will be talking now about metals. When you study in class 9th or in higher classes, We don't say metals generally, we try to define that they are solid or they are good conductors. We don't define based on their properties, but we take some specific properties at higher level that we find. So metals, these are the elements which are electropositive in nature. Electropositive in nature means they lose electrons and form cations, and cations are positively charged ions. For example, you take sodium is a metal atom. Electronic configuration is 281. It loses one of its electron and develops positive charge, that is a cation. Here we can have an exception. Suppose hydrogen may lose one of its electron and develop H plus ion. So this is an exception we find. Now about non-metals. Non-metals, these are electronegative elements. For example, you take chlorine. Electronic configuration is 287 and it gains one electron and develops minus charge or an anion. Means non-metals, they gain electrons and they form anions. Here also we can have exception, that is H may gain one electron and may develop H minus, that is an anion. Now we will be talking about metalloids. Metalloids, they show the property of both metals and non-metals. For example, silicon, germanium, etc. These are metalloids. Next one, we have to study about noble gases. Noble gases are the elements which are inert, means they do not react. And for example, helium, neon, argon, krypton, etc. These are noble gases. If you see in periodic table, then they are placed in group number 18 of modern periodic table. So these are the elements. Let us learn now about compounds. compounds. These are also pure substance, means a pure substance made up of two or more atoms of different elements in a fixed ratio by mass. To understand this definition, how a compound is made up of and how can we say that the ratio is fixed, let us take an example. For example, if you take water molecule 2 into H, we are trying to calculate a ratio in terms of the mass. Here we should know that hydrogen means 1 atomic mass unit, or in terms of gram if I write, then 1 gram, and oxygen is 16 gram. So here I can write 1 gram is to 1 into 16 gram, ratio will be 1 is to 8. What does it signify if the definition of a compound says that the ratio is fixed? The ratio is fixed means if the ratio changes, the compound formed will also change. So I will write it in terms of note. If the ratio changes, a new compound is formed. A new compound is formed. You may take, for example, H2O2. H2O2, this is hydrogen peroxide. And H2O is water. So if you try to change the ratio, a different compound is formed. So the definition of compound also we have completed. Now we will little discuss about that there are two types of compound. First type is, so this is types of compound. First one, let us say inorganic compound. Inorganic means mineral based compounds. You can take, for example, nitric acid or sodium chloride, calcium oxide, etc. These are mineral based compounds made up of inorganic materials, so we call them inorganic compounds. There may be other type, that is organic compounds. Organic compounds means, simply in modern definition we can say carbon compounds. Earlier it was called compounds derived from living organisms or living matter. So these are carbon compounds. You can take example like vinegar is an organic compound. Lactic acid is also organic compound. You must have heard about ants bite containing formic acid, or let us say you have heard common alcohol, that is ethanol. So these are about compounds. Now, based on our classification of matter, we have the last topic left with us, which we will study now, that is about mixture. Mixture is different from a compound because the composition is not fixed by mass, and since the composition is not fixed, the constituents, they maintain their properties. For example, if you mix sand and let me say rice, it is a mixture. Mud and water, mixture, because the constituents are maintaining their identities without undergoing modifications. Let us talk about mixtures. Mixtures, these are impure substances with no fixed proportionate composition. You can take, for example, sand and iron fillings. It is a mixture, and a mixture are of two categories. Homo means same, genus or genus means properties. So they get uniformly distributed. Let us take, for example, you take sugar in water and dissolve it. You will not be in a position to identify sugar molecules in sugar solution. If I ask you, can you identify, can you see that sugar particles are there in a sugar solution in water? You may not be in a position to see that. Means particles of sugar are such a way uniformly distributed that one cannot identify it and cannot be easily separated. Another type of mixture, that is hetero, means a different, heterogeneous mixture. Heterogeneous mixture, non-uniformly distributed. Means you can identify the composition easily. You may be in a position to separate it easily, for example, and therefore these are unstable. Let us take an example and understand. If you take muddy water, you must have observed first shower of rain. Dust particles on the road, they get washed away and get collected in the drainage. If the drainage water you see, you will see that it is muddy. That water is drained to some pools. You find it muddy water for some time, few days, and then later you find it that clear water can be seen, means the mud has settled and water is formed supernatant liquid, that is forming on top. So in this way we can understand that muddy water is unstable, means it is a heterogeneous mixture and particles can be seen easily. So uniform distribution of particles are not seen. So here in this class we will be discussing up to here, and then the remaining part will be discussed in next class. So thank you. I hope you have got it up to here about the mixtures. We have discussed elements, we have discussed about compounds, we have discussed about mixtures. So overall, briefly we have discussed today's class about classification of matter. So you may note down, these are some basic things. So thank you for watching this.